Well, hello, this is Dawn Rickabaugh. Welcome to the Note Queen podcast. Also, we do Property and Paper Live. You may know us for that. And of course, you can always find out what we're doing at notequeen.com and all over the social media places and YouTubes and things like that, that every entrepreneur is supposed to be doing. But anyway, today I have the honor of interviewing Scott Horne. And you have a lot going on, much more than just your owner financing network, but that's kind of how you caught my eye on Instagram. So everyone who's listening in, go ahead and follow and subscribe. But we're going to learn about Scott together. All right, so Scott, tell me all about you.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
How long do we have?
Oh, yeah, I bet you're going to have to fit it into about 40 minutes.
Okay, no. So for this purpose, Dawn, I know we were just talking earlier about being an attorney and whatnot, but in all honesty, although I'm an engineer who became a lawyer because I didn't want to go out in the real world, I think, too soon. I graduated really young and got into this business by complete default back in 1985, 86, which for those of us who are a little more mature and wiser, remember that was the real estate crash days, right?
Right.
And the wonderful RTC. And I had my one job as an in-house attorney for a real estate development firm here in Dallas for a whole whopping year until you're laid off and you're done. And you start figuring out how to go out and hunt and kill it. If you want to eat, you got to figure out something to do. And then when you're young, and as I always say, stupid at that age, you don't realize that in the middle of a major recession, A, you're not getting hired by people usually. They're laying people off. And B, if you get into the real estate game, deals aren't moving. But you don't know what you don't know until you go out and you try it. And I'll make this as short and sweet as I can. I got out, all I knew how to do was real estate. And I put together at that time a syndication of 100 duplexes.
Wow.
Brought the deal together, they were all in foreclosure. A CPA from our church had a lot of investors. Got it ready to go. And of course, what happens? They changed the tax laws at the very last minute, crashes everything. And somehow I wound up managing 100 duplexes for these 3 banks that were out of state. And you learn how to do things. Because back in those days, as you'll remember, we didn't have the internet.
Right.
We didn't have access to paper. You had to go out and actually use a little thing called a typewriter and type up your leases and all this kind of stuff.
Typewriters. Oh, that's such a throwback.
That show you the age? Yeah. But, it logs it in your brain as you're learning how to do something literally from the ground up. And one thing leads to the next, and tried doing the commercial world for a long time in apartments, office buildings. And again, you don't realize that in the middle of major recessions like this was then, real estate's just not moving. But you learn a ton by going out and doing it. And so I said, I'm done, started my law practice, just trying to figure things out the hard way. And one day this kid sticks his head in my door and asked me if I know anything about sweat equity. And you go, I know a little bit about FHA 203, I think 203K loans, wherever they were then. And we started talking, and one thing leads to the next, and we hook up and we start buying houses. And I mean, we're buying houses for $10,000 and $15,000 back in those days. And one little quick funny story is we're buying a home, and I didn't realize why the whole house was painted brown, chocolate brown, oil base on the walls, brown cabinets, brown VCT tile on the floors, until you get your first tenant out of the property. That was a Section 8. And then you realize why it's all brown, so you can take the hose in and literally wash it out. It was so nasty back in those days. They've changed the rules now a little bit, but we started learning by doing and borrowing what today is known as hard money, because that term wasn't around back in those days. And you realize real quick that you have to learn how to cut out the middleman if you want to make money, the mortgage companies, the realtors, the title companies. You learn that you cannot live on hard money forever. You have to go ahead and get cheap money. And so we start trying to figure things out when you're young and you have a lot of energy to do all that. And slowly over time, we got a bank to agree to do one deal for us. That one deal turned into 1,000 deals at that bank over the years. And you'll remember or know of the Homevestor operations.
Right.
So the gentleman who started that was Ken D'Angelo. He was here in Dallas. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, we're flipping houses back and forth, trying to figure things out. We are molding things. And there was a fella here there was two guys here in Dallas. One gentleman, Craig Pettit, who really became the first hard money lender in Texas. And another one was Todd Etter. And he put together a system to start buying mortgages. And he was buying them, pulling them, and selling them out to a company called the Associates back then. Because back pre-real estate crash days, 08, 09, most of the owner finance mortgages wound up at the Associates, one way or the other. They got securitized and put out on Wall Street. And I know there were a few guys doing all that, but Todd, we started buying houses, fixing them up, putting buyers in there, using all types of creative finance techniques. And back then in Texas, we could do lease options, lease purchases, contract for deeds, and all this stuff, and it worked awesome, done the right way.
Right.
And we would sell the house using a contract for deed, execute a mortgage, hold it in escrow, season it out for a year or two of our banks, and then pool mortgages together, and we started selling mortgages into the secondary marketplace. And as you start doing that, you start to learn the game, right?
Right.
You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You don't know about loan processing or what that means. You don't realize that if you get financial information from your borrower and you sell a mortgage, you get more money for it. And you start learning all the various nuances of the real estate investment business from that perspective. And over the years, you just get better and better and better. And then, unfortunately, here in Texas, they keep changing our laws every so often. You know, they had changed our contract for deed laws back in 2001. The lease option laws in 05, 07, 09, they changed and modified a little bit. Then comes the 08, 09 crash where we get good old Dodd-Frank and the SAFE Act and all this stuff. And then our property code here in Texas changes again. But in reality, I've always been an investor who buys and rehabs houses. I'm not really a note buyer, although we've done that. We've always been a note creator.
Right.
And I love the rehab game. It is my passion, doing those things. Now, along the way, when you just happen to be an attorney, that gives you a lot of added benefits from drafting documents and learning the systems and getting creative at how to structure deals better and whatnot. We, one day back in 1996, I told my partner, we're just going to start a title company. And he goes, well, how the heck are we going to do that? I said, I have no idea. But I had a lady who worked for me who had been an escrow officer, and we started a title company. I've been a fee attorney now for 30 years, and that's doing great guns. In that same, light, we were buying 200 plus houses a year, all rehabs. And you can't do much more than that, yourself. I mean, you're burning the candle at both ends. So one day I said, we're going to start lending money. We're going to become that proverbial hard money lender. And of course, my partner goes, what? And I said, how are we going to do it? Where's the money come from? And somewhere, somehow, we did it all. Became Texas's largest hard money lender until about 09, where it went poof for obvious reasons. And so when you hear all of this, and I could talk for hours about all this stuff, Dawn, but what that means is you have been through all of these real estate cycles. Mm-hmm. You've been through the buy, fix, and sell game, the retail game, the realtors, the title companies, the mortgage companies, the changes in the economies and the items of that nature that go on. You start to learn the note game. And of course, as you well know, when the subprime era hit, the note game started to tank real fast. And you just start learning new things. And then as they change our laws and our rules and regulations and throw more things at you, you navigate around those the best you possibly can.
Right.
And as you get more and more seasoned, as we'll call it, right, you just learn more and you become reasonably proficient at this industry, which I think is where we are today.
Fantastic. Well, that's quite a resume that you have. And I always like talking to the people that, you and I aren't that far apart in age. Maybe we're even the same age. I don't know. Or I can't quite be your mother, I don't think. But anyway, I was not in.
Don, you could be my daughter. Let's just put it that way.
Well, okay, thank you, and I'll pay you later. Do you take Venmo? Okay. All right, but I wasn't in real estate until 2004. I quit my nursing job, so. Even though I'm old enough to have been around in those, I wasn't actively, playing in real estate. And so I always like hearing what you guys have to say that have been around through all these seasons, because as brilliant as a lot of these young people are, they're phenomenal. They're crushing it. They're just go-getters. They just don't have the perspective that comes with when you've been through, a few crashes and downsides and things like that. So
let me tell you what, when you go through, back in 1985, 86, when that hit, you have no idea what a major recession means, how it affects you, what it does, because you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to, and again, there was another minor one, in the end of 1990s and little things like that. But fast forward to 08, 09, I will tell you right now, I was sitting on the floor in my den, 10:30 at night, I'm watching Fox News, and they announced that Washington Mutual has been taken over. I mean, my jaw drops. I'm going, oh crap, what does that mean? I have a $5 million line of credit at that one bank.
Oh, wow.
You don't sleep at night. And I mean, I went out the next day and I started having meetings with 22 different banks that we had lines of credit with, going, I'm not sure what's going on, but here's how we're going to handle this. But on the flip side of all that, Don, what happened then at least was we had about 130 investors walk away from their hard money loans. We had maybe 700 loans in portfolio. I'll let you do that math, okay?
Yeah, wow.
It makes you have many, many, many sleepless nights and whatnot. And as you're trying to figure this out, I refuse to go the bankruptcy route that so many investors did here in Texas at least. And what saved our rear end was knowing the creative finance game.
Right.
Because people still wanted to buy a house, they just couldn't get a loan.
Right.
But all the things worked. And what was interesting then was that none of our owner occupants walked away. Just the investors, because they were stuck, they couldn't sell the houses. And they didn't have the financial ability to hang on to it. So we were able to go in, restructure all of our lines of credit for our banks, put the deals together. Our banks loved it for us because they didn't want these houses.
Right.
And we found a solution that worked. But you go through those kind of things, and you watch these cycles, and in today's world, as you're saying, that these younger, well, let's call them kids who are in the industry, because that's what they are, they're kids. They haven't been there. They've been on this upward cycle for so long, going back to like 13, 14, 15, as things slowly have just been climbing, and now it's on a little bit of a downward cycle. They haven't seen those kind of things yet. And real estate is cyclical, as you know.
Yeah, so what you're describing is kind of like, let's say the prepper mindset. You're already ready to go when we hit that next cycle, because do you see that coming? To me, I think it's plausible that we have another time, and it may not be that far away, that what helped you survive during the time you just described is exactly this owner financing, creative financing. That's going to make or break everyone. Do you agree, disagree?
Well, if you don't know that, you'll be stuck. I mean, what's interesting is that, so if you are an investor who is investing in property and it's not your homestead per se, you're not tied to it.
Right.
Because when bad times hit, and they will always hit through various cycles, Um, People give up their play toys, other things first, second, third. The last thing they usually give up is their home.
Right.
So I like that as a commodity in that regard. You know, Oftentimes when I do seminars here in the Texas marketplace and around the country, I talk about a pyramid type for the real estate business. And everything truly is pyramidal in a way. And I relate it to the retail business, clothing and whatnot. And here in Texas, we have Neiman Marcus, which is, they cater to that top 1% of the population, right? That never goes away.
Right.
This charge $15,000 for a dress and people still keep buying it. However you ladies do that, I don't know. Down at the bottom, of course, it is your Walmarts, right? And who do they cater to? They cater to the average person, which is about 85% of the population, that never goes away. And philosophically, our focus has always been on that lower end. So I call our business kind of like the Walmart theory of houses. Right, I'd much rather deal in $300,000 or let's call it $300,000 houses today than $1 million house. Because when you need to get out of the deal, you got to get out. And even though how attractive, let's say, commercial is and apartment complexes, et cetera, if you've got to sell an apartment complex in a recession or a depression area, there are very few people who can buy that.
Right.
But there's someone who can buy a house, right?
Right.
And so we've focused in that area. But at the same token, for my 30 plus years in this business, the seller finance game has never gone away.
Right.
Yeah, it changes a little bit. The pricing changes, the interest rate changes, this changes, that changes, but it has never gone away. It's always been there. And it's just learning how to navigate that. So, as you said, if you want to create a recession-proof business, I think learning that creative finance game is so important out there, because it's how you can buy houses creatively, but it's equally as much as you can sell it that way. You may not get a 9 or a 10 or 11% interest rate. You might get a 7 or 8, but it's still income producing.
Exactly. No, I couldn't agree with you more there. As I was sitting, the 2020 years, COVID years, really had me taken back and going, what is happening in the world, and what in the uncertainties, if I was going to come out of my shell for Note Queen 2.0, what would matter the most? How could I make the most difference? What would be most profitable, most versatile? And I'm like, hey, it's still, and I want to know why you've come out with your owner financing network, because that is newer than you've been around as an attorney and an investor all these years. But for me, the things I can't lose with, almost, it'd be really hard to lose, is buying properties with owner financing, and then buying front end partials of the notes, right? Or anywhere where my investment to value is around that sweet 50% or less. And then if I don't know, because to me, you just can't lose. Those are in like you said, if I end up taking something back, that's great, because I always have the exit strategy. I could rent it, I could resell it. So I align very much. So tell me what you see. Why did you start your network, this owner financing network? Do you want to tell us more about that? Why you started it, what you're hoping to accomplish? And do you work outside of Texas, or are you mostly staying within the state of Texas?
So, let's go back to 08, 09 when the crash hit, right? Everybody had gone brain dead during the subprime era. If you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan. So everybody was selling houses for cash. Nobody was doing our creative finance game.
Right.
We still work in our business. We really didn't go that retail way.
Right.
But as we're doing all this, all of these investors in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then a lot around Texas who knew who I was, because I was one of the two go-to attorneys here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for what we called Aereo back then, the big real estate investment organization that we had. And as they started making these little nuanced changes in the law, there was nothing set up for owner financing because these investors would call and they go, what do? We can't sell our house. It's just sitting. And you go, have you ever thought about doing this? I said, to do that, you need to have some long-term financing on the back, and you can't have hard money or private capital. So go to your bank, get a refinancing, do these options. But no one remembered how to do seller financing. It wasn't in existence here hardly.
Wow.
There was my some. I know Mitch Stevens down in San Antonio. He was doing a little bit.
Right.
There might one or two people doing it on a very small scale, but it wasn't out there. And then as I started to change this, there was no mechanism for it. And so my remedy for dealing with all these huge defaults that are ongoing to us, and it was in the middle of the night, was to create these seller finance disclosures that we created because they didn't exist. And it's like, what do we need today to sell a home or to buy a home from a seller or sell one to a buyer? And I just started putting them together. And it wasn't for any great purpose other than for myself and for the investors who were calling us. And one thing led to the next, and all of a sudden we become that go-to, law firm closing agent to put these things together because no one knew how to do it. And I never intended this to become this animal that it has. And we've done, 6,000, 8,000 deals since 2010 probably, which is awesome. I'm not complaining about it by any means. And we keep learning along the way too. But we started with that format, but then they started coming in with the SAFE Act rights.
Right.
The Dodd hits. And that's different in every state. In Texas, we had what was called T-SAFE, which gave us a 5 property de minimis rule. If you're in another state, and by the way, Dawn, what state are you in?
I'm in Nevada for the last 10 years.
Cool. Are you in the fun part of Nevada or what?
Oh, I'm in the part of Nevada that I love. It's the Northeast Reno Tahoe area.
I am jealous.
You should be.
I can come there anytime and go play golf at Tahoe, okay?
Okay.
Awesome stuff, gorgeous, great weather too. So anyway, we created our disclosures, but then they make these changes with the SAFE Act, where this thing called loan processing comes into play, and the RMLO.
Right.
And it didn't exist prior to all of this. We processed our loans just because we knew we could get more money selling our mortgages that way, but it wasn't a requirement. It wasn't out there. For instance, in Nevada, California, wherever it might be, for every single owner finance transaction you do, you've got to process the buyer.
Right.
In Texas, it's after you do 3, you've got to do it. Now, we suggest that everybody does it the first time, but legally, we don't have to do it until you've done 3.
Yeah, so just in case people aren't following this, it's basically the underwriting that you would do to qualify for any mortgage. You've got Texas Pride's been around. Are they still doing that kind of thing too? And you've.
Well, I started Texas Pride.
Oh, that's your company.
Well, it was until my old partner sold it, and the girls the day I trained them.
Oh my goodness!
In fact, they were in my office here with me for a long time until they moved on.
Well, anyway, so and you've got the guys out there call the underwriter that apparently do this. So you do that probably as part of your.
We do. It's
right.
part of the network.
Right.
And I could tell you why we created it, but probably not the venue for it. But it was a good thing. We went out and did it and put it together, and we're good at it. We understand what the rules and regulations are. We got it.
Right.
And we do that not only in Texas, but we do it nationally, just like the underwriter does the same thing. Mm-hmm. Between the underwriter, the Texas Pride girls and whatnot is, they're processors. We're actually the investors who understand this business, and it just gives you that ability to help your client a little bit more based on the situation as it comes through, because we do it ourselves every day.
Yeah, you're pretty full service there with deep experience. And so, did I hear correctly in the beginning? You were saying that you were doing tons of real estate and rehabbed and you loved it, but now you've switched to be the hard money guy and then service provider, or are you still doing the rehabbing? What are you personally doing? What do you think, what are you after? What's the juiciest thing you're after right now as an investor?
I hate to say the word everything because I love this business. It drives you. I love the legal and title side, helping the investors put the deals together, making it happen for them, educating them how to do it the right way and take care of things. That's awesome. And it's just rocking and rolling both here in Texas as well as nationally. It's phenomenal. We're still in the investment game. We're rehabbers. We still buy houses. We still rehab. We still sell with seller financing. And it's fun to help sellers out of bad situations if you buy it from a creative perspective. Excuse me. It's great to help a home buyer who thought that they couldn't get into a home and they do. And you get the deal closed and you watch them out in the parking lot, jump up, down and hug because they got their first house or something. It's rewarding to do those kind of things.
Right.
And game is, I love it. It's fun turning crap into gold and creating all sorts of issues. And I know you've talked to my business partner, Susan. And of course, in our business today, I'm the Chip and she's the Joanna, as I call it. I swing the hammers, take care of all this stuff, and she does all the decorating and those kind of items. And she does a phenomenal job at that. But we love the investment game. But not only is it the investment game, but it's the creative side of the investment game. Where today, sometimes when you're in the cash game, you're an equity buyer. I'm buying 70% or less loan to value whenever you can. That's hard right now in Texas. So you flip-flop over to a creative finance acquisition modem where you might be buying zero equity, but you're buying cash flow.
Right.
It might take a little bit of time to get that cash flow generated as opposed to other scenarios, but that's okay because no equity, but I have no liability if I bought that home subject to the existing debt. And so understanding how to make that work has been really, it's just fun. So the loan processing side of this is fun. Again, sometimes you've got to help manipulate deals, make them work. In loan servicing, for instance, loan servicing didn't used to exist in this industry until all this stuff came down from a compliance perspective. And today the loan servicing is just out there because there's so much of this going on now. It's your fraud preventer. In fact, here in Texas, we helped set up the very first loan servicing company. Same issues as with Texas Pride. They were all here in my office building with me. And today we are now their competition. And that's fine. It's fun watching here in Texas as our rules change because, in Nevada, you don't have the same rules and regulations we have. You can do so much more, and you're not bound by what we are in Texas with some of the things we've got to do. And it's not that it's hard, you just have to know it.
Right.
And, we have this thing here called the RAP lending bill. It's been in effect for about 2 years. Well, what is it? What do you need to know about it? How do we help our investors get around it maybe somewhere, somehow? So we create some various companies to help them navigate it so that they don't have to be licensed. Because here in Texas, if you do more than 3 wraparound mortgages within a year, in a 12-month period, you've got to be a licensed RMLO and have your company registered with the state. Investors don't want to do that. So we found the solution for them. And so when I say this investment game that we played on, and you play it too, it's just fun. All the various angles drive you. The day flies by in about 14 seconds, You never watch a clock. And it's always something different. And whether you're in the car driving, talking business on the phone while you're going to that construction project, and then you change hats and you become the contractor and whatnot, or you're going to buy a house, or you're going to your bank, it's just fun. So I hate to put my finger on any one thing and say, this is what's driving us. And I'll tell you one more story, which is, I have sworn that I would never be in the mobile home business, ever. I just didn't want to deal with that element per se, um, guess what we're now in? The mobile home business. But we're in the mobile home business from the creative finance side. Yeah, we're buying with cash and refurbing them, but we're selling them with our creative finance. And there's a big market for that just because of the price point.
Exactly. Are you, so you run your own servicing company?
Well, we don't actually run it. We're partners with a gentleman. His name is Sohail. The company's called Provident Loan Servicing. He's headquartered here.
Provident?
Provident.
Provident? Gotcha. Okay. Well, wow. So in terms of what you're finding, you're having success is with buying terms, basically subject to people are highly leveraged and taking over those. That's where the juice is for you as an investor primarily, and the lower price points of the mobile homes where the cash rehab and then paper out of it still works.
Yep.
Right. Are you keeping all that? Are you keeping that paper? Are you keeping that paper? Are you selling off pieces of it, or what's your strategy?
So I have been lucky to help some insurance companies convert from commercial into single family. Did that about 8 or 9 years ago when my prior business partner of 25 years decided he wanted to go and get into the commercial world and make some changes. And insurance companies historically always buy commercial. So they can put a lot of money into one project and it can be handled for them properly. But with the advent of loan servicing and whatnot, it allowed them to come into the residential world and really double their profits. And they loved it. But we've been able to work with these insurance companies, learning their rules and regulations also, where today we will buy, rehab, sell, and we'll bifurcate our back-end mortgages. And I didn't used to sell a partial, but today we will sell off maybe a 70% first lien, keep a 30% second lien, and be totally debt-free in it and just eliminate that. But at the same token, we're servicing all that paper for them, which means we're able to control it, we're able to protect our back-end lien position of the property, and if it does go south, we're able to take it back over, resell it, and reload it for everybody.
So are you saying that you're selling off your paper to the insurance company or the properties, or both?
We're selling off the paper.
The paper, gotcha.
And we keep 80% of our paper in-house and just hyper accelerate all of our debt.
Mm-hmm.
We sell off some just to create more cash flow. With the mobile homes, the goal is to hold all of that internally because we're selling these on 7-year notes, 8-year notes, fully amortizing.
Right.
So they're shorter than traditional homes.
Right.
And you just got to find things that make sense, and you have to morph and change with the times because they do change. Everything changes. And you brought up the economy, and my crystal ball is still in the pawn shop. So if you've got yours, I want to come use it. Because, I look at things and it's still spooky. I don't know what's going on.
No, it seems like it's just at that point, I don't know, it just feels, even though you see the numbers they're reporting, it doesn't feel authentic. Something doesn't feel right. I feel like it's that point in time where the Titanic is starting to turn, but it's going to take a really long time. Everything seems normal, and then all of a sudden it's not. You see something on the news, and the next day, nothing's ever the same again. It feels like that. So it doesn't make me not want to do anything, but it makes me want to be very specific about what I'll do. I'm not going to go and get myself into a bunch of rehabs that my only meaningful exit is, a bunch of hard money loans. Even if you're loan to value, that, like you said, that you experienced earlier, if you've got 100 hard money loans out there and half of them go bad overnight, that's, even if you were only at 70%, I mean, what a headache. And
well, let me tell you what, Don, when you think you're at 70% and you think you're safe, no. We were being offered back in those days 40 cents on the dollar. And you can't do that. You can, but you're in the poorhouse when you do that, so no. So you live, you learn, and it causes you to be more cautious, to be more mindful of the marketplace a little bit. It causes you to change your structure a little bit. And Dawn, you're going to yell at me, but my computer could possibly shut down here in 2 minutes. And if it does, we may have to start back over again just for a moment, okay?
Okay, well, you know what? We can kind of, I think we can sort of start wrapping this up anyway. I mean, thank you for your time. And I just want to get clear on, what do you want people to know you for? Is it only Texas people that should connect with you? Who do you want to call you? Who's your ideal set of clients? What do you want?
We work with thank you for that. We work with the investor marketplace. In Texas, we do everything. Nationally, we work with investors who are buying and selling homes creatively. Doesn't matter how they buy it, sell it, but we work with, they're subject to their wraparound mortgages, their seller finance. We help them process their back-end buyer as needed, and we provide title insurance to them as well. Now, we're not licensed in all those states, but we have affiliates who are.
Oh, I see.
So truly, we're trying to be a service provider for our industry that is so awesome to have, and to be there to be a resource, because they do not know what they're doing 2/3 of the time.
No, especially sub 2. This is just a disaster waiting to happen, the way a lot of these are coming together.
Yeah. And the TCs that are out there, that's a brand new thing. It's only been out for about 1.5 to 2 years. They don't know, but the investors think they know more, and they don't. So we're trying to really be a service to them, help educate them better, provide legitimate resources so they don't go out there and stub their toes and whatnot. And hopefully that works. So Texas, we love this business. It's great. We're in the note business. You know, if they need to sell a mortgage, we can help them close it. We may or may.
Well, he did tell us that he was going to be cutting off there, but you know, Scott, if you don't come back on here in a second, I just want to thank you after the fact for coming on and joining me and sharing your depth and wisdom. So anyone listening, go over to ownerfinancenetwork.com. His name is Scott Horne. He also has a law firm website. You know what I think is, it's imperative, even if you're only trying to buy or sell one house or 2 houses or a small portfolio, you must have, I mean, you can make or save thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars by understanding what to do. And right now, sellers can get out with a lot more money if they carry paper, and it can help defer capital gains. But it's not critical now. But I would wager that within the next 12 months, learning about owner financing and notes and some of these creative deals and keeping yourself safe and out of lawsuits is going to be absolutely crucial, particularly if you're a real estate investor and that's part of your business. So anyway, go ahead. I'd love you to subscribe, like if you've appreciated this content, and don't forget to go over and check Scott out at theownerfinancenetwork.com. I will see you around the queendom. Go out there and create financial solutions, just one mom and pop to another. Until next time, thank you. Bye-bye.